tonight to mull over the events on the campaign trail this week. Rowan Dean, a carryover champ from last week, or from every week.
That's right.
AFR columnist, spectator, man of many hats, and author of a new book, Beyond Satire.
Thank you, Janine.
There you go. And a special guest tonight, our first time on the show, Daisy Dumas, who you might have read in the Sydney Morning Herald. Is it in Fairfax papers generally? I always get mixed up. Fairfax Media. And you're doing a campaign diary. I'm dying to hear what you think. This is your first campaign. You've been trying to find the fun bits. We only have to do it once a week and we're struggling. So hats off to you for doing it every day, and we'll come back to that. And joining us from Prime News Canberra, Natalie Forrest. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be with you.
And Natalie is representing our younger. We're trying to get a mix of demographics and social media and young and Gen Y and everything. So we've got it all covered tonight. And we've just had Clive Palmer. But as we said, it's not all lighthearted. We give you the news. And we've just heard on Twitter the latest Galaxy poll. Here are the figures for you, hot off the press. Well, not the press, off the Twitter. ALP, 35, down 1. LNP, 46, up 1. That means on a two-party preferred, we have the ALP at 47, that's down 1. LNP, 53, up 1. It continues the trend we're seeing, Rowan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've almost thought from day one that although we had this great, excitement of Kevin Rudd getting his old job back, and everyone got very excited about this, isn't it great? Because everyone felt it was unfair, Julia Gillard getting rid of him in the first place. But at the end of the day, Australian people aren't morons, they're not stupid. The whole Labor idea that we can just swap horses midstream, change leaders, was never going to run, and I would not be surprised if over the next week we actually see Kevin Rudd ending up with the sorts of figures that Julia Gillard would have delivered.
I'm totally with you. They sold their soul to the devil and they're going to pay.
For no
now,
reason.
Daisy, you're covering the campaign every day. Given what we're seeing, I mean, the week before they said was a bad week for Rudd. I don't think this week was any better. I guess I'm actually surprised it's not worse than that. I mean, to be honest, if you take the media attention.
Yeah.
I mean, are you surprised it's only a point, or is that the feeling you're getting there, that it's just not turning for them, is it?
No, I think it's just, I'm surprised that this hasn't happened sooner. I mean, it's going to widen, the gap will widen, I believe, from what I'm seeing, but no, it's just a bit of a disaster.
Just on the campaign trail this week, there was nothing you saw in the stories coming in that saw Kevin Rudd, because we keep being told every week, next week you'll turn it around. It didn't seem to go much better this week, did it?
No, and from what I'm seeing and hearing from Campaign HQ, I think next week it's going to be the blame game. People are going to start
They're
pointing
already
fingers.
going to start pointing fingers.
The names will probably come out, and someone's going to have to, some heads will roll for
They
this.
haven't even had their launch tomorrow and we're already getting up.
I know.
But I'm not surprised they are rebel. Natalie Portman, God, I knew I'd say that. I keep thinking of the actress. Natalie Forrest, Prime, you're in the middle of Canberra, though I guess it's a bit quiet down there at the moment, is it? Or are there still plenty of people around? Is government actually running at the moment?
There's no one actually in here at the moment. It's pretty quiet. Everybody's out in the electorates doing the big hard sell. But it is quite tense in Canberra because, as you would know, Canberra particularly is going to feel the brunt of whoever gets in. The Liberals have been, and the Coalition have been promising anywhere between 12 and 20,000 public servants to go. And Labor also have got efficiency dividends. So in Canberra, it's a little bit tense at the moment. But like the rest of the country, we're all just dying for it to be over. We're a bit over it.
Oh, we knew it. Canberra Prime News, Canberra reporter. I'm sorry, as a journalist, I love an election. And all these people who go around saying, oh, it's so boring. They said that the last time. 07 was better, but I can tell you a lot of those Howard campaigns, they said, were boring too. Honestly, don't write it off yet. When you go back, you will look back fondly on this campaign, I think. Just finally on the polls, we saw a lot today about the marginals. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about, Chris Bowen at risk, and a lot of people poo-pooed that. It does seem that it's now coming out. I mean, tell me one candidate you're surprised. I was surprised at Peter Beattie so quickly. Are you surprised at Chris Bowen?
No, not at all.
What's the one that shocks you if they lost?
Well, Chris Bowen does not shock me for the simple reason, particularly over the last 48 hours with getting up there and telling these disgraceful lies.
Yeah, didn't do himself any favours,
completely lost any sense of dignity. He's taken, which Labor have been doing for a long time now, just trashing whatever respect for figures there are. This blatant lie, this misuse of the public service, which we discussed last week. Chris Bowen doesn't deserve to be in that job, and it would not surprise me at all to see him going. The ones that, there's none that you really think should really be back in.
We've got one of the polls there coming up. We'll put some figures up while we keep talking. You can see them, they're self-evident. These are these marginal ones that came out today. Daisy, has there been any one that you've been shocked by a poll, a marginal, where you go, oh goodness, I didn't think he'd lose, like a Chris Bowen or a Peter Beattie, someone like that?
No, actually I think
Kevin
last
Rudd?
week, for me it was last week when I was up in Griffith in Brisbane, and it was Glasson, and the poll came in saying that he's preferred, and you know that's Rudd's homeland. I just wasn't expecting that, and it's very possible that he could get it.
So being on the ground there, you weren't shocked to find that there might be a chance Kevin Rudd could lose. They're not all.
I thought it was going to all be Kevin, you know, really behind him, but there's a lot of people there that are just so bored of this. They're bored of the politics. They're especially bored of the politicians. And frankly, if Kevin goes, they think perhaps something fresh is going to come out of it.
Well, I'm with that. I keep thinking perhaps with the next Labor leader, the next Labor Prime Minister is not in the Parliament
That's
yet.
right.
Natalie, was there any seat that there's been speculation somebody might lose that surprised you?
Look, certainly for me, Kevin Rudd, because he was certainly playing up the whole rock star status, you know, with the selfies and what have you. So obviously early on when there was, you know, a hint that he may lose his seat, that kind of surprised me. I think the sheer extent of perhaps what's going to be a bloodbath probably will be quite shocking in the end, and I think will be food for thought for the Labor Party down the track.
You betcha. Now, we're going to look at it. I said at the outset, Sheen's gone off Mr. Sheen. Always looking a bit irritable. That little mouth is just getting more pursed. Not happy yesterday. There was a bit of a disaster of a press conference. It could happen to anyone. Somebody could faint, kids can cry, the lights go out. Actually, that reminds me, we'll get to that in a minute. Here's a look at that press conference, and poor old Kevin can't take a trick.
Minister for Cities. Sorry, can someone take care of it? Thank you. Guys, can you just... we'll get round everybody. Okay?
Why do you think...
the candidate for McMahon, whose name escapes me, actually. I'll come back to you in a minute. I'm just answering this one over here. On the question of actually what's the budget bottom line impact. Yeah, sorry, you continue. And having said all that, folks, I'm going to zip.
Got a zip. Oh, my God. No, that just made me think, because you grew in your Gruen days, I remember the great Fraser one. What was it? With the last business to leave, please turn out the lights.
Yeah,
and that's what I thought of when I saw Kevin Rudd and the lights go out. I thought, oh, they're a bit quick.
Yeah, that's good. And there should be parody ads coming out. I'm sure there will be parody ads all this week from both sides. As we said before, it would be great to find where the Obama attack dog parody ads are. We still haven't seen them.
But do you think he's looking a bit frazzled?
He is, and worse than that, and this is the saddest thing, he's looking like a parody of himself. And once politicians look like a parody of themselves, it's really all over, because all Kevin has is himself. He's got nothing else. So all he can do is be himself more and more and more, and the more he is himself, the less people like him. It's a disaster.
Daisy, as someone who is doing a humorous column looking at parody, how are you finding it this week?
I'm having a field day. I've got I actually have plenty of material for the column, because I think that it's all turning into just a bit of a joke, and I think there are more real people in Madame Tussauds at the moment than there are on the campaign trail. I just don't think. I think we're not seeing Rudd. You know, we're not seeing him at the top of his game. We're not seeing that brilliant campaigning star. We're seeing somebody who's bitter and is really being withheld by his people.
We're seeing old Kev, not new Kev. Do you think, Natalie?
Look, I think somebody needs to give him a Snickers, quite frankly.
His blood sugar's down, you reckon?
He's looking a little bit grumpy. But after 4 weeks on the campaign trail, I guess any of us could be a little bit frazzled. Perhaps he needs to take a leaf out of Tony's book and go for a bit of a run and get some of those endorphins happening.
Yeah, I was just going to say the comparison with Tony, who, to be honest, as a person who's not huge on jogging, I think goes to the other extreme. But apart from his jogging, Tony Abbott is now, he's not even hiding the fact that he is staying on message. Here's what he said this week.
I'm just going to be steadily repeating our message. There will be the mother of all scare campaigns.
An absolute barrage of negative ads. Modern Labor is hopeless at government, but they're brilliant at politics, and we're going to see plenty of low politics over the last week.
Funded by a $12 million
Union war chest.
I still think this is like climbing Mount Everest.
And as people who have climbed summits will tell you,
there's still some pretty perilous paces to take.
The last few paces are the most dangerous. Look, this is a very close election. Very, very tight. 7 long, hard days to go. So this is going to be a very tough week.
Daisy, do you think it puts people off to hear the same thing repeated? Is that where they get bored with this, or do they give him credit for being on message and sticking to it?
I think people get bored with the repetition. However, it's a very effective way of drumming in a message, obviously. But when it comes to Abbott, he just has to keep the status quo. He just has to maintain it. He didn't have to do anything, really. He's just watching it implode, I suppose. And as long as he doesn't upset anyone and say anything that's, you know, too incendiary, he's just fine. He just has to maintain the level.
Natalie, how does the younger generation, with the short attention span, Twitter time, YouTube, this constant boring repetition, I mean, it doesn't give them much, you know, to get excited about, does it? Is that why they're not engaged in this election, do you think?
Yeah, I think both sides are so hell-bent on not stuffing up, and that's what will, you know, essentially it'll come down to is who has the biggest gaffe. And I think Tony Abbott's been very, very careful in sticking to that message, and Kevin Rudd has been quite uptight as well. So, you know, the young people, I guess, are kind of identifying with Clive Palmer and he's twerking a bit more.
Yeah. I know, that was the point. I had to actually take him seriously, but just quickly before we go to a break, your thing about what's your opinion on Tony Abbott as somebody who does advertising? It doesn't give you a lot to work on, does it?
No, because he's staying true to his core
You think
values.
it's good?
He has said all along. It's clear that Australians are so fed up with this all the chaos of Gillard and Rudd and backwards and forwards. You wake up every day, there's a whole new drama.
So
People
boring
works.
works.
Boring, they want relaxed, they want comfortable. So if he just keeps saying the same thing, lots of people are going, thank goodness, let's hope you're a boring Prime Minister when you get in.
There you go, the generation gap in action. Rowan, not that I'm saying he's older, but boring is good. Natalie, younger generation, boring is bad.